Day 5, we've made it as far as Cairo, and this place is an entirely different beast to everywhere we've been so far in Egypt. This is a city with 22 million people in it, and at any given minute they reckon there's 4.5 million cars on the road. So I guess this chaos is a bit inevitable. And that's why, as I learnt yesterday the hard way getting from the airport, it is pointless trying to get a taxi anywhere. And that is also why I have just added a scooter to the list of transport methods to zip across Cairo. And that was a bit mad. But you know, it is the capital of the city, it is big, old and important, and so we're going to spend the day mooching around trying to find some of the pros in all this mania. We're starting our day in the old Muslim section of the city, and here we have Al-Azhar Mosque, one of the most important Sunni institutes in the world. It is over 1,000 years old, not that we can get in to have a look, and is part of a complex including Al-Azhar University, which is the oldest university in the whole world that is still operating as one. Obviously, being a busy Arab city, it is home to its own sprawling maze of souk, and right at the end of this one in particular, we have something called Bab Zuwayla. This was built in 1092 AD and is famous not only for being a 75-foot tall medieval gate with 2 minarets built into it, but was also where the messengers of the Tatars, they would get hanged here for when they tried to threaten Egypt, and that eventually led to the demise of the Mongol Empire and the beginning of the Mamluks. So yeah, hanging a few chaps here earned this gate quite a name for itself. Honestly, if you're trying to get about Cairo, don't waste your energy walking, don't even bother trying to approach a taxi guy because he'll try and rip you off anyway. Download Uber, don't get a car because it'll take forever. Get yourself on one of these scooters, it costs 50p, literally 10 Egyptian pounds, 50 English pence, to cut about for 10 minutes. Saves you so much effort and they're just brilliant. And said scooter has just dropped us off in a place completely in stark contrast with what we've seen so far in Cairo. This place is called the City of the Dead. I mean, it is so called because it is very quiet, but also these things, these domes everywhere, this one, it is actually a cemetery and people live in it. Not an awful lot of people, that's why it's so quiet. But yeah, very intriguing place, lots of burial sites and yeah, just people living amongst it all. This is a bit strange. It is all in all a massive part of the city, and there's a whole range of different sizes of, you know, here's a big grand one, and just everywhere around you there's just you know, smaller ones, just graves in the middle of of what is now a street, but originally would have just been a cemetery. I don't really know how to feel about this. I don't know if this is a really efficient use of space or if it's just really, really sad. But I've got to say, it is all very unusual. Very quiet though, very, very quiet. It just keeps going everywhere you turn. There's just more cemetery, more living spaces, some more cemetery. There's an awful lot of it. And bad news, I've kind of become entirely lost in the City of the Dead. If this isn't how a horror film starts, boys. Oh, it does get to quite a bit of a maze after a while. A very peculiar area. Fascinating nonetheless, but yeah, a little bit of an odd one. Civilization. I think we've made it. There you go, another 20 Egyptian pounds, a whole English quid. Just saved me a half an hour long walk through a very, very smelly part of town. But anyway, my agenda for the Uber scooter thing ends now. It's just good and you should use them if you come into Cairo. Anyway, we have made it up here. I'm not going to lie, I did not expect to find something quite as grand as all this. This is all stunning. On the outside, what we're about to go into, we've got this wonderful mosaic dome thing. And there's just quotes from the Bible everywhere, in both Arabic and English, which is intriguing. And in here, we've got a church built entirely inside a cave. Have you ever seen anything like this in your life? This has got space for thousands of people to come to a service, and I've just never seen anything quite like it. This is unbelievable. This is not something I thought I would find in the absolute mania of the capital city of Egypt. This is mint. We've got carvings all the way around. All of these iconic passages from the Bible and the scenes they talk about are all carved directly into the walls, and they're all over. Doesn't seem to me like this is awfully well used anymore, which is a shame. This is something absolutely remarkable. This really is not what I expected to find. I knew there was a little church somewhere up here, maybe dug a bit into a cave, but not the entire thing. How is this not more of a major feature of Cairo? How is this not talked about more? I barely knew this existed. I just came up here on a whim. There's also not a lot of information about it. I don't know when it was done or anything. I wonder if the lack of information is to do with the fact that it's Christian and it's near the edge of a smelly bit of town. I don't know, but if this was up to me, I'd be making a pretty big deal out of this. It's also completely free to get in, which is unusual for Egypt. There's no one really about. A couple of locals just nipped in, but it's hardly a tourist attraction, and I've got no idea how. Wow, yeah, what an ace surprise that was to find. And then when you're back outside, you remember that the entire mountainside is filled with carvings, just like they are inside that cave. Even this church looks brilliant. What a place. For the record, this is the bit of the city you've got to walk through to get to that church. Maybe that's why it's not so well documented. Okay, last preach for the Uber scooter crew, by the way, but just mobbed across the entire city in what was supposed to be an hour and a half in 40 minutes, and it cost me £3. Get yourselves on that Uber scooter hype, chaps. If you're coming to Cairo, get yourself on one of them. And where exactly did that scooter bring me? Well, you didn't think we'd miss it, did you, chaps? We've made it. The only remaining ancient wonder of the world, the Great Pyramids at Giza. I'm going to be honest, I don't think there's really an awful lot I need to tell you about these, the most famous structure in the whole world. And it turns out the only one of the ancient wonders of the world that are left. The Gardens of Babylon, the Lighthouse at Alexandria, everything, all the other 6 ones have disappeared. This is the last one that's left. Like I said, I don't think there's an awful lot I've really got to tell you about these. Absolutely magnificent. This one behind me, the Great Pyramid, was built using 2 million bricks, and at the time was the tallest thing mankind had ever built, 146 meters tall, and that was 4,500 years ago. The greatest fact about this though, the one I've been dying to tell you, so this is the Great Pyramid of Giza. This was the biggest thing ever made by mankind, as I just said. That held its title from 2,500 BC until 1311 AD, so nearly 4,000 years. And do you know what building took that top spot, took that title away from the Great Pyramid of Giza? People thought before it was the Eiffel Tower. It's not true. The building that took the title off this was Lincoln Cathedral. How about that? Probably my favourite fact in all of Egypt. This bad boy, the last remaining ancient wonder of the world, got pipped at the post by Lincoln Cathedral. There's an awful lot of people nearby trying to sell me camel tours into the desert, and you know what, normally I would not be interested, but I'm going to use this as a chance to test my haggling skills. If I can get an hour tour on a camel to see all 9 pyramids for a £5, then I win. That's the bet. Well, how much is it for the tour?
The tour?
Yeah, to walk around.
The money Egyptian and
Egyptian.
200 Egyptian.
Okay, let me go visit this guy. He told me 100, so I'll visit this guy. And we're gone. Here's how you ride one. So you give it a kick to make it go anywhere, and then you just steer with this rope. I guess we can now tick camel off that mode of transport list, although I've got to say by far by far the least comfortable so far. Up here we've got a million pyramids, including the big one, and all of Cairo. I mean, we had to do something at least a little bit touristy while in Egypt, and this isn't a bad one to do, especially for the price we got it at. Got to admit, it's also an awful lot quieter than I anticipated. Only a few camels kicking about and a few people. I thought it was going to be mad. 2 million blocks. On average, they're 2.5 tons each. Some of them are up to 70 tons each, which means the entire structure weighs nearly 6 million tons. And just for some perspective, the tallest building in the world at present, the Burj Khalifa in the UAE, weighs 500,000 tons, so it's more than 10 times heavier than the currently biggest building in the world. When Napoleon visited the pyramids when he was about, he somehow worked out that if you were to divide this back into its stones, the Great Pyramid, you could build a wall around the entire country of France with it. Not really sure how he got to that conclusion, not really sure if that's a fact either, if it's confirmed or not, but that's what he reckons. But then again, he is French, so who knows. Listen, we all know about, they're aligned to the stars. We all know that we don't know how they were built. I'm not going to bore you with any of that stuff. I guess the only thing left to do is just to marvel at them as we walk past and go back into Cairo. All we need to know about these things is that they're pretty big, pretty beefy structures, but as we now know, not as big a deal as Lincoln Cathedral. So no need to trek all the way to Cairo. Just get on a train, job done. For the record about my bartering deal, it did actually end up costing me a tenner for that because, the Egyptian way is to just later upsell at a point that you've got no other choice. So that guy was being a bit of a dick, but still, a tenner, it's not bad considering if I was going to go and see the cathedral, then it would cost me more than that anyway. So pretty happy with that. Ridden a camel, man's about, that's a big pyramid. Let's continue. Right boys, that's it. I've lost my head. Head is completely gone. Just spent an hour of my life on the back of a motorbike while the driver stops at every given opportunity to ask somebody else where he's going, even though he's got Google Maps in front of him that I can see. He's asking me for directions and I'm following the same map. Anyway, it drove me absolutely mad. Obviously taken all daylight with him. And I've also spent about 2 hours today telling people I don't want to buy something, them saying, okay, well, I'm not going to make you buy anything, and then trying to sell me something. So, to put it briefly, in a single word to answer what's Cairo like, it's stressful, boys. It's really, really stressful. Anyway, that's that. I'm not here to be negative. I mean, the stuff that I want to see now is in the dark, so I'll see what I can do. Just know that this city is hard work. Alright, rant over. Let's carry on. So this mighty fine, very dark church here is St. George's Church and dates back to the 5th century. It was actually largely destroyed in 1975 though, so the one that stands here is not from the 5th century. This is a more recent building and I promise it's quite nice. I know we can't really see it, but it really is a very grand and very fine example of a Coptic church in Cairo. It's also quite late now, so we can't go in and have a look either. I'm starting to appreciate the futility of this situation now. And the last site I was going to show you, it looks like it is actually now currently a building site. It's not ending very well, this, is it, chaps? Right, so I guess we're going to have to admire from here in the dark. Yeah, it's not going well. This is Amr ibn al-As Mosque. This is the first mosque ever built in Egypt and therefore ever built in Africa. The first ever one. Listen, I can see where this one's going. I'm going to put this video and myself to bed before we just descend into a madness of just really dark pixels and not a lot to look at. Cairo certainly has its charms and it definitely has a lot more to look at than what we've seen today. But I think we've had a pretty good rummage around. We've seen a lot of good stuff here, but I have spent an awful lot of my day either travelling between places or trying to say no to people trying to sell me something, and that's happened a lot. And while that might not put an awfully positive spin on the video, it's true, it is what happens. You're gonna have to be prepared for people talking to you, pretending they're not going to sell you something, then 45 minutes later, after walking you across half of the city, they're going to take you to a shop and expect you to buy something. You've got to be prepared for that. You've also got to be prepared for the traffic and trying to get across the city to sites. It's not a quick bop like you think it is. It's a bit of a mission. But as we've seen, it's been a good wander around. It's definitely worth the visit. It's worth persevering with stuff like that because there's a lot of cool stuff to be doing. And with that, I am off to bed. After tonight, I've got 2 nights without any accommodation, any bed, anything. I'm just going to be on overnight transport, failing to fall asleep for the next 2 nights. So I'm going to try and make the most of this bed while it lasts. That is day 5 complete. We've got Alexandria tomorrow, then Sharm el Sheikh, and then a mountain to climb before we go home. So still plenty to be doing. Almost there, chaps, almost there. Cheers, boys, in a bit.